And you were talking earlier about, just everyone being together. And we've had this conversation, the importance of alignment. I think about ownership to head coach, to personnel guy, GM, to coordinators, to position coaches, to the players. The teams that are aligned, the teams that are on the same page, see it the same way. We're preaching this. This player represents this. This is how we're coaching them. The older guys are coaching the younger guys. Those are the teams that have the advantage. And it's what Kansas City has, right? They've had it for a long time. Incredible ownership, relationship between head coach and GM. They're exactly on the same page. Coaches follow, leaders follow, young guys come in, they get acclimated. That's when great teams, happen. They happen because the organization is great, and you lived it for a long time. And that's what guys like Harbaugh and Dan Quinn are trying to build. And it'll be fun to see it, because I think those guys are the right guys. If they get everybody on the same page, they'll have a chance to win.
Yeah, man. And down on the Rams, I'm pretty close with their tight end coach, Nick Caley. And he told me last year was his first year in LA. And he said, McVay's energy every day, the way he just approached the day was unbelievable. He was like, it was something like I've never seen before. He said, I got in my car 4:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm driving to work. He said, I got the music blasting because I'm just excited for the day. He's like, the energy every day walking in was incredible. And as you mentioned, all three of these head coaches, what are some of the similarities and differences in how you think they're going to run these three teams who the Rams have had success, they're trying to continue to build, but you look at the Chargers and the Commanders, it's like, all right, we got to kind of change this around a little bit and go a new direction. What do you see some of the similarities and differences in that?
Well, you said it. I feel like Sean McVay does a fantastic job there, and his relationship with Les Snead, they are absolutely on the same page. And then Stan Kroenke, their ownership, he doesn't get in their way. He supports them, and they can create the culture they want with the kind of players they want. And so they don't have it down pat. Nobody does, but they've been there for a little while now, and they know what to do. I think Sean did his best job of coaching last year. They had a disappointing year 2 years ago, and their team, the way they had constructed it to win that Super Bowl was, hey, a lot of veteran guys, they paid them a lot of money. They kind of made the run at it. And then, okay, you have to pay the price now. And they did. But I love what they did last year, coming off the 5-win year in 22, was let's draft some young guys. Let's play some young guys. All of a sudden, Puka Nacua catches 105 balls. The guy caught 60 balls his whole entire college career, So they got some young guys. They coached them hard. They coached them well. Everybody was on the same page. There was a new life and a new energy to their team. So I love the rebirth that happened with them last year. And that's really what Jim Harbaugh and Dan Quinn are trying to create. Yeah. On the same page. I feel like they're on the same page with the Chargers. I feel like Harbaugh has the right kind of people around him. GM comes from Baltimore. There's kind of that Harbaugh DNA with the kind of people they want to draft. He's back with Greg Roman. Jesse Minters, his defensive coordinator, was with him at Michigan. So I don't think there's going to be any disconnect between personnel, head coach, coordinators, and how they want to do things. And he's going to bring his own kind of energy. His energy is different than Sean McVay's. He's going to be who he is, but he's going to his energy and his juice is going to pervade that whole team. When you walk in the building, you feel it. When you walk out on the practice field, you feel it. And the best teams I've been around, they have that. And Dan Quinn's trying to do the same thing. He and Adam Peters are on the same page in terms of how they want to build it. They got the new young quarterback in Jaden Daniels. And Dan, if you've ever been around Dan Quinn, one of the best guys you'll ever meet, and the players love to play for him. It's an aggressive attitude. He believes in connecting people, playing for each other. He spends a lot of time trying to do that. He did it as a coordinator. He does it as a head coach. And I think that's a big part of the culture and the DNA that he wants to bring. But it's a hardworking environment, but it's upbeat and it's positive. It's not the baton death march, which I think is the magic in this day and age if you're building a team and coaching a team in the NFL. You have to work hard, but you have to do it in a way where you're respectful of the players. You're not demeaning the players. They want to be there. They want to work for you. And the guys who are able to do that are the ones that have the most success.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one word that I hear more now than I heard when I was playing is just collaborative. Everybody wants everything to be collaborative, whether it's front office to head coach to players. Everyone wants to feel I'm heard in these situations. Like what I think matters is just so different. When I first got in the NFL, I remember training camp, Bill would have the schedule on the board every day, and it would just say, practice at 9 a.m. and then practice again at 1. And I'm like, I went to the vets. I said, can we have a double session every single day? It's like, are you allowed to do that? And they're like, well, Bill comes in the morning and he decides if it's going to be a double or a single. And I'm like, well, like, it's just him deciding that. And I feel like now you don't really see anything operate like that, or the thought is that things don't operate like that. And I got a really cool opportunity to go to Jacksonville yesterday and meet with their rookies. And being in Jacksonville, the one thing that stuck out to me was this team had a little bit of an up and down season last year, and they still have an approach of we want to impact and be good on the field, but also off the field. And I talked to the rookies about obviously being rookies in the NFL, and I told them the first thing you have to do when you're a rookie, go be a good football player. Earn the trust of your teammates, your coaches. Show up when you're supposed to show up. Be where you're supposed to be. Do what you're supposed to do. But the second is trying to be impactful, doing things off the field. And this team is trying to do that. They are out in the community. They're working. And I think one of the cool things that I talked to the rookies and I talked to some of their staff members outside of the coaching staff was just leadership. And they said that's the thing that they're trying to focus in on this year going into the season, because we've all been there before as a player. I know you as a coach. A season doesn't go exactly the way that you expect it. You lose maybe a game or two that everyone feels like you should have won, or you just don't show up another time. And that's when you need the guys that you call captains or you call leaders to kind of just be very level-headed, either rise or just stay consistent, because now everybody looks for them. And just talking to some of their staff members, they feel like leadership is something that they have to do a better job of this year. They said one of the things that stuck out to them was there's a kind of an expectation sometimes in NFL that guys are going to come in and after a couple of years, they're leaders. We're not going to help them. We're not going to train them. We're not going to talk about it. They're just going to naturally become leaders. And when I was in New England, we were very fortunate there were leaders before us, like we just spoke about. There were other guys in the locker room. You watch them, you learn from them. Jacksonville's kind of a team where they've had a lot of turnover in the last couple of years. I think Doug Peterson coming in has really kind of slowed things down, solidified it. But now it's like, as players, well, who do we look to? Trevor Lawrence is the guy. He's really young. Josh Allen just got his second contract. He's really young. Both of these guys haven't had success in the NFL yet. So one of the things that stuck out to me talking to people, they said Mitch Morse and Gabe Davis have brought awesome leadership as free agents. And the thing that stuck out to me was these guys have been there before. They've been on long playoff runs with Buffalo. They haven't gotten to the Super Bowl yet, but they've seen what it takes to go into a season, not live up to expectations, go into a season, blow away expectations. And no matter what, they've seen once that happens, we got to go into offseason and we got to do it all over again and try to just get back to where we were, which is really hard. But now we're trying to elevate and win. So I had a lot of fun just being there in Jacksonville and talking and seeing what they're doing. I think coming off of what happened last year, where they still have these expectations. They have this great quarterback. How do they now take it to the next level?
Yeah, it's great stuff. Let's unpack the leadership stuff first. I've had so many conversations with your former coach about the importance of leadership, and obviously the head coach is the leader of the football part of the operation, so he has to be a great leader. He's leading his staff, he's leading the team. But the best teams you and I have been a part of had multi-tiered leadership, right? Ownership, general manager, head coach, coaches, all great leaders, but then veteran players. And the more as a coaching staff you can empower your players to be the leaders of the team. The best teams we've been on were player-led teams. Now, that doesn't absolve the head coach from leadership. He's still the leader. Buck stops with him. He has to be ultimately accountable. But you're always looking for ways to empower guys. I actually found something yesterday in my garage from 10 years ago We used to always try to put our veteran guys in front of the room at training camp in team meetings, and we had quote of the day. And so it was Jason Witten, DeMarcus Ware, all these guys. I had this sheet of these guys who they would get up in front of the room, and this was their quote. This was a quote that was important to them, and they took 5 minutes and shared it with the team. And then the next guy went the next night. That's how the team meeting started. And again, our goal at the time was we were trying to empower these guys. Coach, get out of the way. Leaders, these great players, you guys lead the football team.
Yep.
So how do you empower them? If you as the coach are always the one talking and it's never interactive and you never get out of the way to let them take charge, you're stifling leadership. So we always tried to do that. And I think the best coaches are able to do that. They're strong enough to say, hey, go take charge of this thing. And I think that's the process that a lot of these teams are in right now. You had it in spades in New England, the levels of leadership. You guys had obvious ones, these captains, these elite players, you, Brady, some of these other guys. But then you guys were trying to empower some other guys below that. Right. And so when you have that, it's not unlike the Navy SEALs or the military. That's what they do. And it's something that, again, the best teams have. I think Jacksonville's in the process of doing that. And when you're in the conversation about alignment and you see that being an issue and the personnel guy says, okay, let's go get those guys from Buffalo. Let's go bring some veteran guys in here. Now it's like, okay, we need better leadership, but you're backing it up with the decisions you're making. It's alignment, and that's what gives teams a chance. I think they're a young team. I think they're a talented team. They probably were better than they were. They played better and went farther 2 years ago than they deserved to go, right? And then they probably took a step back a little bit. Last year was disappointing because they were in a good position, and it kind of fell apart at the end. But like you said, when you reinforce with leadership, with some veteran guys who've been there, had those ups and downs, all of a sudden that makes for guys that maybe can understand how to fight through this and take the next step. To me, the big thing, and we talk about this all the time, I think it's going to happen with the Chargers, with Justin Herbert, is take the burden off the superstar quarterback. Okay, spread it around. Play good defense. Run the ball. Don't drop back quite as much. Just take some pressure off of this guy. In this day and age with young quarterbacks, we're asking him to ID the mic. We're asking him to make decisions in the run game about check with me's, about RPOs, and then we're asking him to drop back in big situations. So there's 65 plays in a game, and they're making big time decisions in 60 of them. It's too much. So as good as guys are, you got to be careful of putting it all on them. You got to take some pressure off of them and take some burden off of them. So I think them continuing to add a veteran guy like Mitch Morse up front, continuing to bolster the offensive line, continue to try to run the ball, get some veteran guys there at receiver just to take some pressure off of Trevor. I think he ultimately will play better. And there are countless examples of guys like that who, when they've had to carry it all, they do great things, but ultimately it falls apart. And then when you get around them and take some burden off of them, they're able to take the next step. That, to me, is the step that the place that they're in right now. And hopefully they're able to take that next step this year.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things for them is getting off to a good start this year. I think we all know early part of the season, I remember in New England, we used to say it's still an extension of the preseason games. We got to get better. But I think for a team like the Jaguars, the way they ended the season, I think they lost 5 out of the last 6 or 7. I think when you come back to a season, everyone remembers how the season ends. You remember the opportunity you had. I remember 2019, we had a chance to get a bye week and not play in the first round in the wild card of the playoffs, and we lose to Miami. I think they had 5 wins that season. We lose to them. We went into the playoff game defeated, then we go lose to Tennessee. It just created a bad moment the whole offseason. And then you come back in 2020, it's COVID, it's everything. And we come back and we win week 1 against Miami. Yes, the season didn't go as well as we wanted, but that win against Miami, I think for us, it reassured, okay, it didn't end the way we wanted, but we still have a life this year. And I think for Jacksonville, it's going to be very key for them throughout this offseason, go through mini camp, But when they come back to training camp, you want to kind of hit the floor running of, hey, this isn't new anymore. Let's pick up from last year where the communication, the fundamentals, the basic things that we've put in, let's hit those things in a day and let's move. Let's go. Because I think that will allow them to say, hey, we understand. Like 2 years ago, we won our final 5. This year, we lost 5 of the 6. All right, that's gone. All of that doesn't matter. Let's go and play. And I think when you can go and play and win, it lets everybody know, hey, coach is right. Let's double down. These leaders, let's go and repeat it over and over again. I think you mentioned Kansas City. That's what's special about them. My old strength and conditioning coach in New England, Moses, he went and visited out there. He said, first thing he called me, he said, man, those guys practice hard, Dev. They run. He said, and I was out there and he was like, Coach Reed doesn't really push these guys or say anything. He said, it was Mahomes. It was Kelsey. He said, it was these guys out in front telling guys to come on. If there was guys on the sideline not practicing, they were kind of getting on those guys for being hurt and not practicing. He said, I really sat there and was like, he said, I talked to a few people and they were like, no, those guys run the team. And it's exactly what you just said. If Coach Reed has to say something and jump in, he will. He understands the heartbeat of the team and what he needs to do, but he has no problem sitting back and letting those guys go lead and run the team. And I think that's going to be key for Jacksonville. Guys like Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence developing maybe faster than some other guys had to, but going out there this year and leading these guys and saying, hey, follow me, let's go. And if guys are slacking off, it doesn't have to be that old school mentality of going and fighting guys and jumping in their face. But when a group of guys or, the whole quarterback room are going to tell receivers, hey, we got to go throw, let's go, they're going to show up. They're going to do it. So I'm excited for this team. And I think getting off to a good start, like I said, will really help this team have a good year this year coming up.
Dev, I always thought a good image of this was, you say you play high school football and maybe you play JVs as a freshman. And then, these guys are talented enough that they're playing on their varsity team as a sophomore. And there's juniors and seniors who are older than they are, established guys, been playing. And, say you're a quarterback and you're just, hey, I'm just trying to do my job. I'm not saying much to anybody. And okay, the next year you're the starter for the second year, and still there's older guys, established guys with big personalities. Okay, it's like, hey, maybe I get a little more traction as a leader, and then you become a senior. And if you continue to have that same attitude, at some point you look around and say, if not me, who?
Yep.
I'm the guy, right? At some point these guys look around and they say, I'm in year 3 or year 4. I know it still feels like I just got here, but the way this league is, it's so young. If not Trevor Lawrence, who? Right? Yeah. It's him. Yep. And that level of guys. And you got to look around and say, if we're going to go somewhere, I got to be the guy who takes charge of this thing and gets everybody going and provides that energy that we're talking about that the coaches provide. And you said something earlier about getting off to a good start. In this day and age, 2024, there's a lot of noise in this world. There's a lot of narratives that guys have to deal with every day. And there's expectation for every team and every player going into the season. And it's amazing when you can get off to a good start and quiet the noise down. And the best players, I've said this for years, have this it doesn't matter mentality. Like, what you're saying doesn't matter. What happened last year doesn't matter. What happened yesterday, what matters is now. And if you can maintain that narrow focus, and it's harder and harder and harder, each and every day in the NFL, just because of the world we live in. There's a lot of racket out there. And if you look at these guys to start the season, at the Dolphins, not easy. Browns, a playoff team. At the Bills on Monday night. Texans, the playoff team. So Colts were a good team last year. Bears are going to be exciting. So all of a sudden, those first 6 weeks, you're like, huh. But if you're Jacksonville, you say, hey, if we want to be the team we want to be, we got to go beat these teams.
Exactly.
These are the teams we're going to have to beat if we want to make the playoffs. So you have to change your perspective and change your mentality, focus on yourself, and go win some ball games early on and create your own narrative of the 2024 season.
Yeah, and I love that because you have a team that's the step you have to take.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.